You're about to enter a world of strange truth. A world in which the line of fact and fiction is almost imperceptible. Hello there, ladies and ladudes. My name is Toyo and I welcome you to Pokémon Fact or Fiction. For those of you who are familiar with the late 90s and early 2000s show Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction hosted by Jonathan Frakes, you won't need my explanation, so feel free to skip this part. However, if you never heard of the show or are too young to even know of its existence, here's how this will go. In the course of this video, I will show you myths and legends surrounding Pokémon. Some very old, some fresh ones, and I'll explain them by showing the gameplay or explaining the story behind them. In some cases, maybe even both. At the end of each myth I talk about, I'll give you the opportunity to decide whether or not these myths are actually fact or just fiction. You will be able to check your choices and scores at the end of the video when I uncover the truth. Seems easy, right? Well, it might not always be as straightforward as you might think. Some of these myths might surprise you by being true and vice versa. There will be a number of 3 to 5 myths per video in this series depending on the time I need to explain these myths. With that being said, it's time to start asking the important questions.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
What's the right tip?
Have you called a plumber to your home lately?
Do you have a pet? Do you have a sweet tooth? Have you ever had the desire to write your initials in wet cement?
Let's keep it simple for our first myth. Pokémon Blue, Red, Green and Yellow. Mew hiding under the truck. I'm sure almost everyone knows about this old myth. It's quite straightforward, right? You surf towards SSN, you go wide, you'll find a truck there. The only truck in the entire game. If you use strength on this truck, you will encounter a Mew. This myth has been so popular that Game Freak even snuck a reference to this into the Let's Go games. And, as every single one of you knows, it was never actually a thing. Right? Well, what if I told you that it actually was real for some people? As it turns out, some people actually were able to find the elusive Generation 1 Mew under said truck. And no, I'm not talking about one of the various glitches involved in spawning Mew, such as the Trainer Fly glitch. Apparently, there's an actual virus plaguing the Generation 1 games. This virus is spread by using the in-game trade function and basically infects your game once you traded the Pokémon with another person who already had the virus on the cartridge. Once infected, some of the code inside of your game would be altered by force, but unlike any virus that you would get by visiting a shady website or while committing piracy, which I know you're doing, which would steal your favorite Discord account or blow up your beloved calculator with internet access, this virus would execute code to actually make Mew appear under said truck. How far this virus has been spread is completely unknown at this point, but if you own a second or even third hand copy, or if you actually have traded in these games on your own, there might be a tiny bit of Pokémon history lingering on your cartridge, one which you never knew to even exist. Unit 731. It's the year 1996. Pokémon Red and Green just released in Japan, and owners of the green version in particular started to report an interesting phenomenon. If you step into the 31st tile of grass on Route 7, people had a 100% chance to encounter a strange Pokémon with the name of 731. You can also encounter it by executing the well-known Missing No glitch. All you have to do is to name your character GCA, then you talk to the Catch Tutorial Grandpa, and after he's done, you fly to Cinnabar Island and perform a Missing No glitch as usual. But since the Pokémon you encounter is decided by the hex value of your name, you will actually encounter 731 this time. When you encounter it, its first form should look like the Pokémon Tower Ghost. However, around 20 frames into the battle, it starts to show a flashing series of pictures. Unit 731 was essentially the Japanese equivalent to German concentration camps. It was used for biological and chemical research on human bodies alongside many more war crimes. This is one of the most recorded events in Pokémon history, even though Game Freak doesn't want you to actually know of it. There's countless videos explaining the matter, endless amounts of video evidence, and even a former Game Freak employee, Mrs. Harue, who passed away from leukemia on May 3rd, 2001. She was willing to talk about the incident and told us basically everything we know about it today. According to her, her husband, Shin Nakamura, was responsible to what happened back then. They both worked at Game Freak as programmers during the creation of Pokémon Green and Red. There's a whole interview that can be looked up easily of her talking about this incident and how it was somewhat related to the infamous Lavender Town syndrome. But that's not the point today. Long story short, Mrs. Haruo was willing to share her restricted knowledge out of personal guilt. Her husband asked her to edit some files and add some modifications he made to the code, claiming they were requested by higher-ups, and she believed her husband as she had no reason to doubt him or his motives. In fact, he added this whole phenomenon to the game, and some of the pictures were made by him himself. As it turns out, his father, Hoshu Nakamura, was involved in Unit 731. During the night the game's released, Shin took the lives of himself and their son, Ken, leaving nothing but a letter to his wife, in which he explains that these games are meant to mark the rise of the new Japanese empire, and that their son would be the first martyr for this cause. As Miss Haruo found the letter and found out what happened, she immediately called in for an urgent emergency at Game Freak, causing a nationwide recall of the games shipped out overnight. Thankfully, there were not a lot of copies sold back then, as the games were shipped out after the shops were closed the day before and they were supposed to be sold for the first time ever in the morning. Only very few of these copies still exist today, and they're known as the original Midori version amongst collectors. Game Freak and the Japanese government neglected to acknowledge any of these incidents, and most records have been terminated. The only real source we ever had was Mrs. Haruo and the evidence she shared, alongside the Midori version she still owned during the interview. If it wasn't for her, this story would never have been as big as it is today. Or would it be? Destiny Deoxys. There's an old myth that, even today, keeps popping up every now and then. In the Generation 3 games, there was a space station. NPCs in the space station kept stating that there are Pokémon that came from space, like Clefairy and Clefable for example. But there are more. They just made pretty useless statements or told you something you already knew by that time. But there's one NPC in particular fans actually have been curious about. This dude right here kept telling you about rocket starts, and the number was rising with each and every real life day, as he was, in fact, using the internal battery of the Gen 3 games to determine how much time actually passed, and based off that, he would tell you that today was the third start, while tomorrow would be the fourth start, for example. Players didn't actually know what to do with this information, as data mining was not as big as it is today, and just passed it off as some kind of test feature for Game Freak to test the internal clock GBA games could use back in the day. However, that changed when the movie Destiny Deoxys finally aired for the first time. In that movie, during launch number 100, Deoxys showed up and basically threatened planet Earth. I won't spoil the plot here in case anyone still wants to watch that movie for the first time in 2024, so that's basically all you need to know. Fans worldwide didn't take long to draw parallels to the game, and began to suspect that you would be taken to space at launch number 100. They all check their glorified calculator guy once a day to finally reach the fabled launch 100, where they finally encounter the mythical Deoxys. This whole event was kept secret so well that gaming magazines worldwide printed guides on how to obtain this Pokémon, offered strategies to make catching the space demon easier, but they forgot one little, maybe a bit annoying thing. For most players, the goddamn battery would run out long before launch number 100 was achieved, and almost no one knew that you could send your game to Nintendo to get the battery fixed, and receive this very rare shiny Zigzagoon event as compensation when you got your games back. Once the battery ran out, the internal clock would freeze forever, and if you were on launch 99 when it happened, you'd be stuck on this launch forever, with no way to ever encounter Deoxys unless you know how to replace a battery yourself, or unless you knew about Game Freak offering a fix, which they never really advertised. In other words, many people never got their hands on this Deoxys, making it one of the rarest Pokémon even today. Yoshi in Pokémon. What would you say if I told you that Yoshi was actually in Generation 1? The Expert Gamer magazine offered a walkthrough to obtain Yoshi as an alternate Dragonite skin back in 1999 to celebrate their new exclusive contract with Nintendo. To pull this off, you would have to have a friend who had the opposite version of you. Or, if you had money, you could own both versions yourself and use 2 Game Boy consoles. Now, player A had to catch Dratini and trade it over to player B, who was using the other version of the game. Player B now had to train up that Dratini without the use of rare candies, until it evolved into Dragonite. Once Dragonite was sent back to player A, that Dragonite would become a Yoshi. The stats, name and moves would still be Dragonized, as this was just an alternate skin, but hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people were trying to get this exclusive Yoshi back in 1999. The question is, was this an actual article that really existed in a well-known magazine? Or am I trying to trick the younger generation of Pokémon players here? These are the 4 myths of today. Let's see how much you truly know about the days of old, or how good your judgment really is. Myth number 1, Mew under the truck virus. Was that the truth? Did someone actually spread a virus which made Mew appear under a truck? Was the myth of a naked mole-rat cat hiding under a vehicle which made thousands of players reset their save files just to find it actually true in the end? Surely this is way too far-fetched. I just tried to hype on an old washed-up myth again, right? False! This story is actually 100% true. You can find the video of this virus's creator, Mr. Cheese, on YouTube. A link will be in the description. Myth number 2, Unit 731. A story that sounds straight out of a creepypasta. Did Miss Haru actually leak confidential information? Was her husband responsible for planting this picture into a game for children? Everything about this case is well documented. The reports, the interview, the video evidence, and it's naturally all in the description for you to watch. In other words, this myth is pure fiction, of course. Shin Nakamura never existed. His father wasn't an employee of Unit 731, and the whole Lavender Town syndrome never existed in the first place. If you believe the Japanese, of course. This is an old creepypasta which tried to keep the Lavender Town syndrome alive and shroud it into mystery once more. And it successfully did so for a time. However, everything was proven to be fake. You're more likely to find a Japanese football star with the name of Shin Nakamura than you are to find anything related to Unit 731, which actually existed but was never featured in any Pokémon game. The legend of the original Midori version and its secret content still lives on to this day. Myth number 3, Destiny Deoxys. Game Freak hiding mythical event Pokémon from even existing has a long tradition and only really ended in Generation 6 when people found Volcanion in the code of X and Y long before Game Freak actually released it. They also hid the mythical Ranger Manafi event alongside tying Jirachi to physical copies of its movie. So this myth clearly is true, right? It's pure fiction. In fact, it's one of these old schoolyard rumors which you heard about back in the days when you had no internet access. The NPC counting stars actually exists, but an event for Deoxys was never tied to him. The actual Deoxys event had nothing to do with the space station or space itself. Myth number 4, Yoshi. Was Yoshi actually featured as a Pokémon in a well-known magazine, causing hundreds of thousands of players worldwide to get their hands on Mario's glorified reptile dog? This clearly is too dumb to be true, and would never pass the test of time. Or would it? The answer is, this myth is actually true. Believe it or not, but Expert Gamer actually printed this guide on how to get Yoshi in the magazine on April 1st, 1999, and they fooled every single soul that saw it. It even got covered on national television as people were scratching their heads and asking themselves on why they couldn't make it work for them. Before you judge us, it was a different time, okay? Rumors like these were everywhere, and in a game where the missing no myth actually was a proven fact alongside level 255 Pokémon, nothing seemed impossible. So can you actually blame us for believing that? So, how was your score? Did I, perhaps, trick you into a wrong answer, or were you able to identify fact from fiction? Did you perhaps know the answers to all of these myths beforehand, outing yourself as an elder like myself? Or did you just uncover that you're actually a guessing god? Whatever your score is, please let me know and possibly tell me about stuff you would want to see covered in a future video. With that being said, stay safe and make sure to sub to not miss the next episode of Pokémon, Fact or Fiction.